All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Over the last 2 years, the Houston Texans lost 26 games, but they were still a competitive and scrappy team. However, here in 2023, the Texans are still competitive, but now they are winning on Sundays. After losing their first two games of this season, the Texans have rallied to win three out of their last four as they are now at 500. And you can see the confidence of this young team growing. First year head coach D'Amico Ryans is bringing it all together. And I'm going to touch on him in a minute once again. But you think about this past NFL draft, this past spring, where the Texans got their two building blocks. They had the second overall pick, and you knew they whoever Carolina didn't take with the first pick, whether it was Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud, you knew that person was heading to Houston. And of course, there were some people right off for the longest time that were talking about Bryce Young going to Houston due to the fact, the Alabama connection. D'Amico Ryans played there, had a stellar career for himself there before embarking on a solid, NFL career as a linebacker, multiple time Pro Bowler. And, obviously the Alabama connection there. But nonetheless, when Bryce Young went to Carolina first overall, Houston was more than happy to take CJ Stroud. And right behind CJ Stroud, credit to the Texans for trading draft capital. They had that additional first round pick, from the Deshaun Watson trade to Cleveland. And they decided to move up to take Will Anderson Jr., the phenomenal edge rusher, also out of Alabama. And, these two youngsters are having an impact immediately for this Texans team. Now, so far in Stroud's young NFL career, nine touchdown passes to just one interception. And the one interception came this past Sunday when he's trying to force a ball to tight end Dalton Schultz against the New Orleans Saints, completing nearly 60% of his passes to begin his NFL career, which is not bad. And he's going to improve. You look at this young man; he's full of confidence. He's looking to break that Ohio State jinx, if you will, that some people talk about at the quarterback position. But I think, I don't think enough people gave CJ Stroud enough credit for his moxie, if you will, during his time collegiately at Ohio State. Had big shoes to fill when he took over as the Buckeye starting quarterback for Justin Fields. And it was a learning process. He continued to improve. You look at the first rounders that Stroud was consistently getting the football to. But I think you go back to late last season for Ohio State. And, Ohio State, of course, they went into the Michigan game undefeated. They lost, did not have an opportunity from there to win the Big Ten, but they still got to the college football playoff. And with all of the injuries that the Buckeyes were dealing with in the second half of that game, in that playoff game against Georgia, especially the big one, the Marvin Harrison Jr., CJ Stroud put this team on his back and gave them an opportunity to win, albeit it didn't work out for them. But nonetheless, I think he showed a lot of people, his guts going up against that Georgia defense with a depleted offense. Nonetheless, he's brought that same toughness to the NFL. And I think the sky is the limit for this young man. And, he has some good pieces around him on offense to work with. And I think the Houston Texans are going to improve there. Now, speaking of D'Amico Ryans, he came to the Texans as the former defensive coordinator of the San Francisco 49ers. And we've seen over the years for the 49ers, whether it was Robert Saleh, D'Amico Ryans, and now, of course, Steve Wilkes, the Niners know how to coach up a defense. The Niners know how to get the most out of their defensive line. The Niners know how to create a pass rush. He has brought that same mentality with him to Houston. And I think you're seeing it improve on this young team on a week to week basis, especially with a guy like Will Anderson. And I think once we see the Texans get more quality players into the fray, and for me, it's only a matter of time before you see a player or two that D'Amico Ryans coached with the 49ers make that trek to Houston when they become a free agent. Now, obviously, there's a strong Alabama presence on this defense with Houston. You think of, I've already talked about Will Anderson. You have Henry To'oTo'o, who was a mid-round pick by the Texans. He was Anderson's tag team partner, if you will, in that linebacking core for the past couple of years for Alabama. And then, of course, with Dallas Turner, who's still there for the Tide and Nick Saban. And then you got Christian Harris. And I'm looking at this team, and they're continuing to get better. They had a slow start defensively in their first two games, losses to both Baltimore and Indianapolis. But you're looking at this team, and they are really coming on strong as they have not allowed an opponent in their last four games. Pardon me, only one opponent, the Atlanta Falcons, to get more than 20 points against them. But this is a Houston Texans team that's improving. They've already beaten the first place Jacksonville Jaguars in their own place. So now you're a game back in the standings, but theoretically you're a game up in the division on Jacksonville, and you still welcome them to your place later this season. But I'm looking at the Texans right now as they're heading into their bye week. They have an opportunity to do something in the second half of the season. They're at Carolina for week 8. That's going to be a game that a lot of people have already circled on the calendar because you got Bryce Young going up against CJ Stroud. And of course, they were for 1-2 in this past spring's NFL draft. So they're always going to be attached at the hip throughout their respective NFL careers. But you got winnable games. After that, the Texans are home in week 9 for Tampa Bay. They're at Cincinnati against the Bengals. And I'm not saying the Bengals are a pushover, clearly not. But, this Houston Texans squad, they have a defense and they have a running game and they have a young quarterback who has confidence. Those elements travel and they typically tend to travel well. You look at the AFC South, it's a winnable division right now. Tennessee's obviously still in the mix. Indianapolis took a huge blow now that they know that Anthony Richardson is going to be lost for the season. And of course, you got the defending champions and the Jacksonville Jaguars. 9, maybe 10 wins might do it. And of course, if that's the case, you win your division and then you get yourselves a home playoff game. Now, to the credit of the previous two head coaches, other than D'Amico Ryans in Houston, you had David Culley in 2021 and Lovie Smith in 2022. Both of them had competitive teams. Both, like I said, both of them are scrappy. They just didn't have the personnel needed to get over that hump, especially at the quarterback position. No disrespect to Davis Mills, but CJ Stroud is more talented than Davis Mills. And I think even as a rookie right now, we're seeing that right now. We're also seeing the fact that the Texans have finally committed to a head coach long term in D'Amico Ryans, and they're going to give him the opportunity, hopefully, to build this roster in his own image. But the building blocks, if you will, are there. Things are coming together for the Texans. You have a young team that has a lot of confidence, and I think they've gone from just being a tough out, if you will, for their opponents. Now it's a point where the opponents of the Texans know you got to buckle up your chin straps. You got to bring it for 60 minutes if you're going to beat this team. But this Texans team is taking the field each Sunday now, expecting to win, and that's a big thing. The Houston Texans, they've been down on their luck for some time now, but I think the combination of Ryans, their rookie head coach, their rookie quarterback, and CJ Stroud, Will Anderson, and others on defense have you thinking that the future is bright for the Texans. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now, you can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I am signing off. And I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.